All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at a completely revolutionary way to study for those times when you feel like you have absolutely zero spare time in your day. We're breaking down a really fascinating report from Study Hacker about building what they call a learning savings account. And the concept here is simple, but honestly so powerful. It's all about accumulating knowledge through something called microlearning and doing it entirely in those tiny, seemingly useless pockets of spare time that we all have. So, before we get into the nuts and bolts of how this works, let's just talk about the reality most of us are dealing with. Do you genuinely want to study, maybe learn a new language, or finally get that certification? But you look at your schedule and realize you literally have no time? If that resonates with you, trust me, you're definitely not alone. As adults, the busier our jobs get, the more this massive desire to upskill just totally clashes with sheer daily exhaustion. Just listen to this quote directly from our source material. It hits the nail on the head so perfectly. There are mountains of things I want and need to do, but securing 1-hour blocks is honestly too high a hurdle. And that's the core problem, isn't it? We've been completely conditioned to believe that if we aren't sitting down at a desk for a solid, uninterrupted hour of intense focus, well, we aren't really studying. And because finding that magical, uninterrupted hour is pretty much a myth for most of us, we just end up doing absolutely nothing. Section 1. The reality of the busy adult learner. We all have that ambition, right? We want to be better, we want to master new tools, stay competitive in our fields. But then reality hits. We're talking back-to-back meetings, brutal commutes, and by the end of the day, just total mental fatigue. The friction between wanting to learn and actually having the energy to do it is immense. When you're that exhausted, even the mere thought of pulling out a thick textbook and dedicating a full hour to studying, that actually prevents you from starting at all. The friction is just way too high. Section 2. What is microlearning? Okay, so by definition, microlearning is this highly efficient learning style that is explicitly designed to utilize short pockets of spare time. Instead of those broad, sweeping, hour-long study sessions, you focus on hyper-specific themes using whatever medium is easiest for you. A quick video, a short podcast, or just a bite-sized text. This isn't about magically clearing your schedule. It's about hacking the time you're already wasting. Think about your morning commute, or waiting for a Zoom meeting to start, or even those 5 minutes before your coffee finishes brewing. Microlearning is engineered precisely for those exact moments. Section 3. The 3 major benefits. First up, let's talk about the psychological aspect. Think about the heavy dread of a 1-hour study session. I mean, just thinking about it kind of makes you tired, doesn't it? But contrast that with the alternative, 3 minutes of study. The psychological resistance to 3 minutes is practically zero. You can do literally anything for 3 minutes. This low-friction start means you actually begin. And because it's only a few minutes, you can do it anywhere. It totally frees you from being tied down to a desk. You suddenly start to realize your day is actually packed with these tiny, actionable windows. But here is where it gets absolutely fascinating. Benefit number 2 comes down to pure cognitive science. Because your learning sessions are so short, you're naturally forced into what's known as spaced repetition and iterative learning. Your brain actually prefers these short bursts. It actively prevents cognitive overload. By setting strict boundaries, saying, hey, I'm only learning this one tiny thing today, you drastically reduce the burden on your memory. Frequently recalling small pieces of information over time is vastly superior for long-term retention compared to cramming everything into one exhausting weekend session. You're basically turning your lack of time into a biological advantage. Section 4. The 1-week practical report. Let's look at how this actually plays out in the real world. Our source ran a really interesting case study. The goal was simple. Review middle and high school level English grammar. The routine was incredibly strict, but also super manageable. They committed to only 5 to 10 minutes a day, specifically slotted in that tiny window right after dinner but before taking a bath. The absolute key here was extreme scope limitation. The author deliberately kept expectations super low. The goal wasn't to breeze through an entire chapter. The goal was simply to do a few minutes, understand one tiny concept, and then stop. Looking at how that week played out, the results are fantastic. Day 1, they just started with that super easy 5-minute review. By day 3, because the psychological hurdle was so ridiculously low, that daily repetition naturally built up momentum. By day 5, something really powerful happened. They reported a massive spike in self-efficacy. They actually felt successful because they were consistently hitting your goal, even if it was just 5 minutes a day. And by day 7, they achieved easy memory recall. Because the scope of each session was so restricted, they could effortlessly remember exactly what they learned the day before.
Now, let's be real for a second, and our source is very clear about the nuance here. Microlearning is not some magic bullet for everything. The pros are obvious. You get high self-efficacy, and it's absolutely brilliant for memorization, locking in facts, and quick recall. But look at the cons. It is honestly terrible for building a complex, systemic understanding. If you're trying to pass some massive, highly technical certification that requires you to understand how 100 different concepts all connect together, yeah, doing it in 3-minute chunks is going to leave you with totally fragmented knowledge. Microlearning really shines when you're trying to retain information, not when you're trying to build the initial framework of a highly complex system.
Section 5. Recommended approaches for success. So how do we make this work? First, choosing the right material is literally make or break. Do not go out and buy a dense, text-heavy academic textbook. You want materials explicitly designed for quick consumption. You're looking for simple designs. The golden rule here is finding books or apps where one single theme is completed entirely within a 2-page spread. Ideally, you want a format where the left page asks a question or sets up a problem, and the right page gives you the answer and a brief explanation. That way, you open it, learn one complete concept, and close it, all in under 3 minutes. Next up, what should you actually be studying? You want to pick subjects that naturally break down into standalone bite-sized skills. Language basics, like learning vocabulary or grammar rules on an app like Duolingo, are absolutely perfect for this. Or think about specific business skills. Don't try to learn all of data analysis in 5 minutes. Instead, just learn how to use the VLOOKUP function in Excel. Pick up a quick tip on how to remove a background in Canva or Photoshop. Or maybe just review one specific example of how to write a highly effective AI prompt. These are isolated, highly useful skills that fit perfectly into a tiny 5-minute learning burst. I want to wrap up the core concepts with this really powerful thought from the original article, because it completely changes the game. The author says, instead of saying I can't learn because I have no time, how about changing how I use time to learn? That is the mindset shift right there. You don't actually need more hours in the day. You just need to stop looking for hours and start looking for minutes. Which brings us to the final takeaway for you to think about after watching this explainer. Take a look at your schedule right now. What 5-minute gap, that commute, that time waiting in line for coffee, that brief pause right after lunch, what 5-minute gap are you going to turn into a learning savings account today? That time is going to pass anyway, right? You might as well make a deposit.